exploring the darker side of reality. Welcome to Rawpedia.
In 1988, a successful American businessman was systematically driven insane. The agents pulling the strings weren't foreign spies. They worked for the U.S. Air Force. This strategy traces back to 1952. The CIA's Robertson Panel observed a massive public appetite for stories about flying saucers. While they concluded these objects posed no objective threat, they recommended that the government actively monitor and manipulate civilian interest in the subject. For decades, the military maintained a specific public posture, official denial paired with a facade of secret panic. This created a feedback loop, where government dismissals only served to convince the public that a massive extraterrestrial cover-up was underway. The military turned the UFO narrative into a perception management tool, using the allure of the stars to shield classified aerospace activities taking place on the ground. Paul Bennewitz owned a company designing precision instruments for NASA and the military. He lived next to Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque. From his home, he had a direct line of sight to the Manzano Mountains, a storage site for nuclear weapons. Bennewitz built custom antennas to intercept radio bursts and filmed unusual lights maneuvers near the base. Bennewitz reported his findings to base security, convinced he had found evidence of aliens. In reality, he had intercepted data from a highly classified military project testing unmanned aerial vehicles and early stealth technology. This put the military in a difficult position. They could silence him through federal prosecution, or they could validate his belief in flying saucers to keep the drone program hidden. The Office of Special Investigations chose to fuel his delusions. They assigned Special Agent Richard Doty to be his handler, a sympathetic government insider who confirmed the aliens Bennewitz discovered were real. The intervention was invasive. Agents entered his home to photograph his equipment and eventually replaced his computer with an identical machine containing altered software. This new software intercepted his radio signals and decoded them into fabricated English messages. The text claimed to be from an alien race that had arrived to take over the Earth. These forged transmissions contained a specific psychological hook. The aliens told Bennewitz that he was the only person they could trust. By controlling the data Bennewitz received through his own equipment, the military effectively took control of his perception of reality. The deception expanded into the physical world. When Bennewitz planned to fly over the Archuleta Mesa, the Air Force dumped physical props on the ground to simulate an alien crash site for him to find. They even took him up in a military helicopter to point out the debris, providing him with official physical validation of his theories. As Bennewitz's letters to senators and President Ronald Reagan grew more frantic, he became increasingly isolated. By 1988, his family had him committed to a psychiatric facility, where he claimed aliens were coming through his walls. The Air Force prioritized the security of an experimental drone program over the mental health of a private citizen. The intelligence community recognized that these same tactics could be scaled. To expand the operation, they began using prominent civilian UFO researchers as conduits for disinformation. Author William Moore admitted to spying on fellow researchers for the government in exchange for supposed inside information. This ensured the military could monitor the civilian community from the inside. Then, Richard Doty showed journalist Linda Mountain Howe a forged briefing paper claiming that extraterrestrials had genetically engineered humanity. This was a total fabrication, designed to distract her from investigating actual military flight tests. This document became the basis for the Majestic 12 mythos, sparking a massive conspiracy industry that persists to this day. The folklore became self-sustaining. The government no longer had to actively hide its aircraft. They simply let the public believe that any experimental platform was a visitor from another world. This system of narrative control has evolved far beyond the analog era of break-ins and forged papers. The primary lesson of the Bennewitz operation was that you don't need to censor information to keep a secret. You only have to drown the truth in a sea of engineered fiction. The success of the operation against Bennewitz provided a blueprint. It demonstrated that if a narrative is tailored correctly, a society can be conditioned to chase phantoms, effectively hiding real technology behind a layer of science fiction. The architects proved that for the casual observer, truth is often less about facts and more about the conditioning they receive. Today, that conditioning is automated. The Pentagon is deeply integrated with global tech giants, utilizing massive cloud infrastructure to manage data on an unprecedented scale. They deploy AI for social listening and sentiment monitoring, allowing for automated influence operations that can be tested and refined in real time. Modern psychological operations utilize relentless data streams to overwhelm critical analysis. By targeting specific psychological vulnerabilities, these systems can move past logical skepticism, leaving the public susceptible to orchestrated narratives. If the government destroyed a man's mind to protect a drone in 1980, what happens when the system decides we need?
Every answer leads to a deeper question. Subscribe, like, and keep exploring. This is Rawpedia.